welcome back to In the Dugout and to another episode of the Dugout Debate. It's been pretty much too long since we did, but no one really cares because no one watches.
Well. When I edit it, I watch it back.
We have a very dedicated African fan base. How dare you?
We have two very dedicated pundits who are joining me. Very dedicated because they're the only ones we have.
I love being a dedicated pundit, yeah.
Pundit. Those being Josh and Alex. How you doing, lads?
Yeah, pretty good now that United can't draw any more games. I'm doing well.
You've still got next season.
Actually, no.
It's good to be back.
We even drew Carrick's testimonial. So maybe the curse hasn't been lifted. I don't know.
I'm just looking forward to Liverpool not giving me heart attacks and aneurysms most weeks. So yeah, should be fun.
Well, another reason to celebrate, other than the Dugout Debate finally returning, can be seen in our weekly feature of Picture This, where we see a rather jubilant-looking David Wagner. So, what could be going on in this picture, lads?
Want to kick us off, Lafroy?
I think you have more for this. So I'll let you start this off.
Good answer. Is it? How did the other 19 Premier League teams react when Arsene Wenger got his new contract?
He looks like he's about to hug something really tall. So is he about to go and give a massive hug to Nikola Zigic, Chris's favourite player from his, favourite club? Yeah.
He doesn't even play there anymore. I have nothing against.
Yeah, no, he's left, hasn't he?
Is it the pose that I'll be adopting when the Tories claim victory on Friday?
Controversial.
The answer is yes.
Foreshadowing.
I don't know if you guys have seen the stand behind him, but is he celebrating in front of a stand filled with everybody that supported Chelsea before 2003?
To be fair, they were probably supporting United.
Yeah, true.
Is Wagner enjoying the YMCA a little too much?
Oh, he's joining in Paul Clement from a few weeks ago.
No, of course, unless you've got
I got
Josh.
one more.
Okay, I'll leave
It's
you. Okay.
my reaction every time Diane Abbott is wheeled out on television.
No, of course, that is the Huddersfield manager David Wagner celebrating his team's promotion through the playoffs to the Premier League.
That's correct. Huddersfield beat Reading on penalties to clinch promotion to the Premier League, and it's the first time they've been back in the top flight in 45 years. So just looking at Huddersfield the season before, the one that's just ended, they finished 19th. And at the start of this season, they were one of the favourites to be going down to League One. So I'll turn to you first, Alex. What do you make of the impact that David Wagner has had on the Terriers?
Well, I mean, there's not really much you can say other than just looking at the fact they've gone from 19th to the Premier League through the playoffs. I'm overall, he's obviously made massive improvement to the team. Looking forward, how well will they fare in the Premier League? It's difficult to say because as much as they did improve in the Championship from last season to this one, I mean, going through the playoffs, I don't actually think they technically won a game. They went through on penalties.
They didn't even score.
Yeah.
The only goal that went for them was an own goal.
But, I mean, he seems to have got the team playing as a unit. He's got some players in there that are firing for him. He had, I think, Kachunga was his main top goal scorer. I think they had Naki Wells, who I think famously... Who was the team that he kind of scalped with?
Well, they managed to get that draw with Man City, didn't they, in the FA Cup?
Yeah. But yeah, he seems to have got the team playing well. They play solid football, not necessarily most attractive, but seem to grind out the results. And I mean, solidity in the Championship, we've talked about it before, is the key thing. If you've got a solid core, then you're going to do all right. And he's managed to achieve that. So, I mean, fair play to him. He's done a very good job.
The other factor, of course, is how well he's euthanized. How well he's euthanized. How well he's utilised the loan system. Because, of course, he had Casey Palmer and Izzy Brown on loan from Chelsea, Aaron Moy on loan from Man City. So he's...
Oh, what player Aaron Moy is as well.
Aaron Moy, of course. But yes, so it's definitely worked out in Huddersfield's favour. So, Josh, just to sort of build on what Alex was saying, how do you think they'll fare next season? Do you think they'll just be relegation fodder, or could they go on to become another Leicester?
Well, I think the Leicester squad of 15-16 was a one-off, and I think it'll be a long, long time, if at all, that we'll see anything coming close to what they achieved. In terms of Huddersfield themselves, I think they're bound to be favourites for relegation. I mean, they got -2 goal difference, which is not the best for a team that's coming into the Premier League for the first time, and for the top flight for the first time in over 4 decades.
I'm pretty sure they may be the first team who've come up with a negative goal difference.
Yeah, it may well be the case. So I think if they've got any chance of survival, they have to build on that defensive back line, maybe some reinforcements. I think obviously goals haven't been much of an issue. It's the conceding of goals, and in the Premier League, as many teams discover, that you can't afford many slip-ups, because if you do, then you're going to find yourself on the way back down.
And hopefully Huddersfield will be able to do well, and Wagner will be able to utilise the experience he had with pretty much his best friend Jurgen Klopp, as he's described it. They certainly look identical. The bloody tracksuit, the cap, even the bloody glasses. Jesus. But of course, since the season is now over, we start looking at things like players moving on, and particularly managers moving, which brings us to our next topic, which will start off in Hertfordshire with Watford, who, surprise, surprise, have sacked yet another manager, with Walter Mazzari's contract being terminated 4 days before the season even ended, and they've brought in Marco Silva as their replacement for him. So I'll stick with you, Josh. Do you think Silva is a good appointment?
Yeah, of course. If you look at what he achieved with Hull, obviously they got relegated, but he didn't have a whole lot to work with in the first place. And I think with Hull going down, it became a case of them just being sort of the worst out of the 5 or 6 left in the relegation battle, not that they deserved to go down necessarily. And I think with the resources that the Watford owners ought to provide him with, which obviously Hull couldn't really, because they barely had enough for a starting 11 this time last year. So I think definitely they've got a good chance of, of a comfortable mid-table finish under Silva. But I think the big question is, will he be there this time next year? Because they sacked Sanchez Flores after a decent finish last season.
After,
getting promoted. Yeah,
they got promoted.
Obviously, and then with Mazzari being sacked this season after another solid finish, I think it's massively unfair that they have dismissed these managers. So Silva has to then bear in mind that his job is not safe whatsoever unless they finish in the top 6. I think his job will be on the line come next June.
I feel like, just going back to Mazzari, I can sort of understand why, because they ended the season with 6 defeats in a row, and pretty much once they hit 40 points, they didn't get any more after that. So I can sort of understand, because they did still finish only 1 place above the relegation.
But each team is still allowed a bad run of form, and they just happen to be towards the end of the season.
I mean, take that into account. There's literally 2 teams that didn't have a bad run in the Premier League, and they were the top 2. Every other team going from 3rd to 20th had a bad run, so it's not beyond the realms of possibility for a team to have a reasonably good season with a bad run in it.
And one team that didn't make the top 2 was Arsenal, that didn't even make the top 4.
Hey!
But either way, good old Father Time, Mr. Wenger, still gets another 2-year contract. So Alex, what are your? I think our thoughts are kind of in tune about what Arsenal should have done with Mr. Wenger. But what do you think about him getting another contract extension?
Oh, I'm bloody delighted, mate. No, but I'll try to rein in my happiness to some extent, because I am very pleased, because I don't think he's necessarily great. But if I were an Arsenal fan, I'd personally be a little bit annoyed about it. Mostly because we've talked about it so many times on here. It's how stagnant the club's become. I mean, for however many years in a row, it's just, go ahead, get Champions League spot, could go on, do very little in the Champions League, wash, rinse, repeat every single season. And it's just that's frustrating. Like, I'd rather go through a period of change and then, even if it means missing out for a couple of years, hopefully coming back and then actually making a challenge and doing something a little bit different, which Wenger just doesn't seem to do. He's very one-dimensional. However, he seems to have potentially changed his tune when it comes to transfers a little bit. He's notorious for being very tight with the purse strings, which has started to change a little bit over the course of the last few seasons. And now, we were talking about it before we started the show, L'Equipe have reported that he's looking at something ridiculous like 140 million bid for Kylian Mbappe. And Chris, I think you said that he's apparently in Monaco at the moment. So I think that perhaps if he is prepared to loosen those purse strings a bit, bring in the change that Arsenal need, because obviously having missed out on top four, they're going to struggle to have the pull that they normally do, and they really need to work at improving that squad, because, I mean, having Francis Coquelin in a side that's supposed to be challenging for the title, supposedly, is ridiculous. So I think that they should have sacked him, but perhaps positive signs that he's willing to make a few big transfers.
And at least they had the FA Cup to sort of add to their little trophy cabinet, because of course now
and they
Arsenal,
played brilliantly in that
now Arsenal have won the most FA Cups of any team. But at least they're making themselves at home in the Europa League so much that they qualified twice.
Back on to Wenger for a second. I think that Arsenal giving him another contract is almost comparable to the Oyston family at Blackpool, just that's trying to alienate the fans as much as possible, and it's bloody funny for everyone else involved. Yeah. We know that Wenger's going to turn up to the next match with a number plate saying "Weng out."
I'm surprised that Wenger can still legally drive because of his age.
He's cycling everywhere.
Oh God, does he really?
I think so.
This trench coat get caught in his.
It's because those French people cycle everywhere. But just going back to, we have a big managerial, quite literally a big managerial change with our phrase of the week, which this week is "while I'm still relatively young." So if any of you have any sort of Oyston jokes to make, now is the time.
Not quite Oyston, but I'll kick us off. I was going to say, when is the best time for me to get my favourite Sunderland player to sign my shirt?
And take you on all those lovely trips behind the back of a Chinese restaurant.
Exactly.
Is it like someone asking Diane Abbott, like, why are you doing politics? And she's miscalculated her age and thinks she's 14 and goes, I'm doing it while I'm still relatively young.
See, I've got something else on the Diane Abbott lines. Is it when would Diane Abbott...
yes!
When would Diane Abbott say is the best time for me to be a pensioner?
Or just bullying Diane Abbott.
She deserves it.
She's too easy a target.
Did someone ask Oscar, like, oh, why'd you move to the Chinese?
We'll never know.
Why did he move? Why did he move?
Can you repeat that because you froze?
Me or
Yeah,
Chris?
you.
Yes, you.
Oh, me. Oh, no, is Oscar justifying his decision to move to the supremely talented Chinese league because he wanted to experience the quality while he was still relatively young?
Carlos Tevez is loving it there.
When is the best time to realise that there's only two genders?
I swear you make a two-gender joke every single week.
Only this time and last time. But it can be a regular occurrence.
And the time before.
It's a new round. We just have a new round where we discuss a new gender. This week it's two spirit.
the new round and in the dugout. How many genders are there every week? Two. Quality. Moving on.
The number
so
of the
you know,
week is two every week.
I identify as an Apache attack helicopter.
I identify as an A nationality two-spirit... an A nationality biogender two-spirit koala. And you can't tell me otherwise. And on behalf of the on behalf of the ABTSK community, I'd thank you for your understanding.
You're more than welcome. Does anyone else have any more answers other than this incredible tangent we've suddenly gone on?
I don't. Well, I realised I thought I had 3 for this and 2 for the other one, and I missed out an answer on the other one, so...
Well,
Is this why you're voting Labour? Because your numbers were a bit dodgy like Diane Abbott's?
Oh, shit, wow. That's fully Alex having a different political opinion. Fuck you, Josh.
Oh, like I've had that for the last 12 months with Brexit.
I mean,
Just like you can't calculate when Liverpool will next win the league.
No one can. Can you calculate the number 0?
God damn it.
Does anyone have the actual answer?
No.
Okay.
Oh, mate.
Thanks for watching. Thanks for joining us again. We'll see you next time.
It's Big Sam
No.
Allardyce announcing his retirement from football management.
That's correct. Big Sam, sort of a legendary manager almost, unless you count his England stint. The full quote,
Come on.
the full quote I have here is, "This is the right time for me. I have no ambitions to take another job. I want to be able to save a life, which means go to the clubs and dance again, while I'm still relatively young." So,
He's 62.
yeah, you're
That's
60.
not young.
That's not relatively young.
It's relative to.
Even if you
Speaking of
reverse
somebody
the
at
numbers,
university-
Adam Johnson will still not be interested.
As somebody at university, and I'm sure Josh will agree, I go to clubs on a reasonably regular basis. I've never seen a 62-plus-year-old
Actually,
in a
no.
club.
There are always middle-aged people in our club.
Oh, but
It's
you're at
so
St Andrews.
funny.
Scotland's all weird and
Back to the point. I'm going to turn this question to both of you. What are your thoughts on Big Sam as a manager in general, just looking at his whole career in management?
I want to start off by saying that I'm glad that he got his stint at Crystal Palace in order to sort of reverse the negative effect that his England tenure had. You know, obviously it was his own fault, but what he built upon as a manager up until that point was extremely good. It's like Bolton in taking them into the Premier League and keeping them up for several years before moving on to Newcastle, which is quite an ill-fated stint, admittedly. And I think it was West Ham after that who he brought back up to the Premier League after they got relegated. Kept them up, did very well with them. Then moved on to Sunderland. Kept them
Saved
up
them.
as well, very well. I mean, he really is the Harry Houdini, or obviously with Crystal Palace as well, he really is the Harry Houdini of the Premier League. So, you know, if you had a struggling club, you could always rely on appointing him to keep them up. So his record and his, I think you can call it a legacy, in the Premier League will last for a long time, you'd imagine.
I hope that. Yeah, I was going to say. I just hope I'm similar to Josh. I don't know if Josh agrees with this, but I hope that his the way we remember him is not actually tainted by the England thing. Because as much as that was bad, you know, it's corrupt. It's not. There's a reason he got sacked from it. He is, in my opinion, one of. I think in terms of the legacy, one of the most illustrious managers that the Premier League's seen. Not because he won a lot of trophies, not because he did anything near the likes of perhaps a Sir Alex Ferguson or an Arsene Wenger, where you've won loads of trophies over a course of years, but he is unparalleled as a manager when it comes to being able to take over a club in trouble and keep them up.
I agree
And
with you,
there
yeah.
are very few managers, even managers like Sir Alex Ferguson, might even struggle to be doing that, because it is a skill in and of itself to be able to take over a club in that kind of mentality and bring them up. So in that sense, he is unparalleled, and I hope that's how he's remembered, because I think he really is an excellent manager.
His career up until getting the England job actually resulted in him being appointed to national manager. I mean, they don't, generally speaking, disregarding the last 2 or 3 managers, they don't appoint idiots. I mean, you know, people get them on, especially sort of like Terry Venables, Glenn Hoddle, Kevin Keegan, even Ericsson to an extent. They got the job, I would say, more on merit than anything else. I mean, I don't know, Fabio Capello and Hodgson had decent records, but that's by the by. You know, he'd proven himself, apart from taking on maybe a top 4, top 6 Premier League side, was the next step was taking on the national side. And I think it was a real shame that he let himself down. And to add on, to sort of build on what you were saying before, Alex, sadly I think he will be remembered for being the man that had one game in charge of England and all that. And I think that will stay with him, but we obviously can't ignore the fact that he had an incredible Premier League record at the same time.
Though at least he will permanently be the most successful England manager ever. Basically, the FA paid him £300,000 to scrape a win over Slovakia.
Not a bad deal, to be fair.
I'll take it.
Just going back to Crystal Palace, the team that he's now left. just looking at who they could potentially appoint to replace Big Sam, because I think Steve Parish has said that they're not looking for sort of a doorstop manager or someone who's only going to be there for a season or two like the last few Palace managers have. So with that in mind, who do you think they could replace Big Sam with?
Well, Sean Dyche has been the name that's been he's been made a favourite by many of the bookies, and whilst I think it'd be sad for him to leave Burnley, what he's done at Turf Moor and the amount of years that he's been there shows that he is fitting exactly the criteria that Steve Parish is looking for. But personally, I think Gary Monk would also be a really good fit, and the only reason he's not lasted at either Swansea or Leeds is because he's been sacked. He did a remarkable job with Swansea, I think, and even with Leeds, and I think it was massively unfair to lose his job at both clubs. So I think, and also Crystal Palace in a similar predicament to Swansea when he was manager. So I think he could be a very, very good fit at Selhurst Park.
Would you agree with that, Alex?
Yeah, it's difficult to say because I don't think that Crystal Palace will have a lot of trouble. If they set their sights on somebody, they'll probably get them because, as much as it's weird to say because they were a team that's battling relegation last season, they're a London club, so they're still a fairly big team. And I mean, if you're a manager looking at my reputation, bringing a team up from where they were to somewhere else, you're licking your lips if you're looking at Crystal Palace because with the squad that they have, they severely underperformed last year.
Definitely.
So I'd like to see them appoint an English manager. I'm trying to remember. I don't know if Josh just mentioned him because I was trying to find out the name. Well, there's a young English manager who's really unfairly sacked in the Championship, and his name Gary Rowett.
Oh yeah, from Blues, yeah.
I think he's an excellent manager, and I know he's obviously, has been quite short term in terms of managerial career. I think he'd be an excellent sign. I think he'd be an excellent appointment for Crystal Palace, and I think he'd do a good job. So I
feel like Gary Rowett perhaps needs a bit more time to prove himself in sort of the lower divisions because he did pretty well once he took over from Derby, and of course we've said about how the Blues board were pretty stupid to sack him, especially with who they replaced him with. But I'm not going to complain about that because it was hilarious. So just turning to a game that took place this weekend, actually, it was, of course, the Champions League final between Real Madrid and Juventus, where Los Blancos convincingly beat the old lady 4-1. And pretty much the star of the show was, of course, Cristiano Ronaldo, who has now reached 600 goals for both club and country. He's scored in 3 Champions League finals, and he's scored 105 goals in 140 Champions League games, 12 of which have been from their 13 Champions League games this year. So just how incredible of a player is Cristiano Ronaldo, because he's now 32. How much longer do you think he can keep this going?
The dude's a machine.
Yeah.
The thing that's always impressed me with Cristiano Ronaldo is his ability to adapt to the way the game changes. Because he obviously started off being, came to Manchester United, skinny teenager, tricky winger. As he developed, that was still his main thing. He was lightning quick on the ball, amazing dribbling with a shot to match it. And as he's got older and the game's changed a little bit from that kind of style, you don't see him doing all the fancy step-overs and the amazing tricks and everything. He is now just a machine. He does one thing only, and that is scoring goals. He's physically probably the most perfect physical specimen football currently has. It's unbelievable. He's still got that pace. He's still got that strength. And as a forward, he's just got everything you need. He's got the height and the jump to be able to head the ball in. He's probably alongside Messi, the most clinical finisher that we have at the moment, and arguably that we've ever seen. And he has the mentality where he always turns up for the big games every single time. Yeah, like you say, he scored in 3 Champions League finals. I've always personally preferred Messi to Ronaldo, but the more time goes on, the more and more impressed I'm getting with Ronaldo as he ages. Because like we say, 32 is not young. 32 is not young for a footballer. That's when most footballers start to go down.
Especially for a forward as well.
Yeah, exactly. And it just seems like he's showing absolutely no signs of slowing down. So he is unbelievable. We always say it. We're very lucky to be seeing Messi and Ronaldo in the same era, and Ronaldo just continues to impress me more and more.
I'm different to you in saying that I actually prefer Ronaldo to Messi, especially not only for the United League, which is, but also if you think about the Barcelona teams that Messi's played with compared to the Real Madrid teams up until the last couple of years that Ronaldo's played with, I would argue that the Barcelona teams have been far, far stronger. The goal
Yeah, it's a fair
opportunities
point.
for Messi have been greater. Yes, obviously he's got these individual accolades, probably way more than Ronaldo has, I'm just imagining. But for Ronaldo to, I believe, have more career goals for club and country than Messi, to have won, I think, more Champions Leagues. Has Messi only got the two?
He's got an international trophy as
Yeah,
well.
he's at the Euros.
Ronaldo's now won, what, 3 Champions
Yeah.
Leagues? I think Messi's won 2. I think Messi's won
Messi's
2.
got the 09 and the 11 one. I think that's it. Anyway.
Yeah, and Ronaldo obviously has 2008.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think...
No, Ronaldo might have 4. Anyway, go on.
bearing all that in mind, I think it's... Obviously, you can't deny that they're both the greatest players that are playing at the moment. But I still think, for the reasons that I've just stated, and obviously the fact that Ronaldo is just insane, and he is about 1.5 years older than Messi, to still be powering on with that same pace and that same passion that he showed when he turned up at Old Trafford as an 18-year-old, I think is remarkable.
Speaking of age, we now turn to the goalkeeper of the opposite team, which is Gianluigi Buffon, who we're not going to deny. I don't think there's any doubt that he is a legend of the
Of
the
course,
game.
yeah.
So, and he's now 39, and the Champions League is the only trophy that he hasn't won. So do you think that he ever will win it? Because he's coming towards the end of his career now, and looking at how convincingly that Juventus defence that had looked so solid, how convincingly they were beaten, do you think he ever will lift the Champions League trophy?
Not unless he moves to Real Madrid. No, I don't.
No.
I
It's Juve. I think Juve. I struggle to conceive a Juve team that, as a whole, is more solid than the one they currently had, and like with the buying power that they have and everything like that. And I don't think their team's going to get better next season. Put it that way.
No.
If anything, it'll only get worse.
They're going to
as
start
people
selling players.
try and swoop in for the likes of Dybala and Bonucci and people like that.
Presumably some of those players will retire as well.
Well, I think
Yeah,
Buffon
I
may
think-
well do.
I think that was Buffon's last chance, which is a shame because I wanted Juve to win mainly because I wanted to see Buffon lift the trophy.
Yeah.
I don't think it'll dent his legacy. I really don't think it'll dent his legacy. I personally consider Buffon, just because of the career he's had, how long he's been going to be the greatest goalkeeper of all time. That's my personal opinion. And I don't think the fact that he didn't win a Champions League will damage his legacy. Had he had a terrible game, which when you look at a 4-1 loss, you think, oh, he probably did, then maybe. But it was none of those goals were his fault. His defence were at fault for every single one of them. And like he couldn't have done anything about them. The first goal was an incredible Ronaldo finish. The second goal was deflected, and from there the Juve defence just gave up. So
Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame. I don't think he'll leave. I don't think he'll lift the Champions League.
At least
but I
that
don't
one.
think that
At least
necessarily
that one.
matters.
At least that one Juventus goal was pretty spectacular.
Oh my life, yeah. Although actually, just to go back, I don't know how much you want to talk about the Champions League final more. You said Ronaldo was the star player. I know one man of the match. For me, Luka Modric, all day.
Modric opened up that defence.
That entire Madrid team ran through Luka Modric. He was unbelievable. It was like watching water flow. I love Luka Modric. I think he's the best midfielder in the world, and he's just everything through that Madrid team ticks through him. And on that night in particular, if you just watched him, the way he moved, the way he carried the ball forward, the pass he made, he was immaculate. And for me, he was the best player on that pitch.
Speaking of damaged legacies, we now turn to one of the less honourable parts of the game, where Sergio Ramos got Juan Cuadrado sent off with some quite spectacular acting, quite so much so that he would be nominated for an Oscar if
One of those
given
gender-neutral
chance.
MTV acting awards.
So, of course, Ramos he's certainly not shy to a card. I mean, I think he may have the most red cards of any defender currently playing. I don't know
It
specifically.
wouldn't surprise me.
But do you feel like that? Because there's no doubt that Sergio Ramos is certainly a talented player. But how much do you feel like acts like that, which pretty much is nothing short of cheating, How much do you think that can taint a defender or just any player of his standard?
I think the worst part of it all is that he is the Real Madrid captain. We're leading by example, I think, is a real shame, and it almost angered me to watch him lift the Champions League trophy aloft, thinking you don't deserve that. Like, when you take the two examples that spring to mind when you think of fiery captains, certainly to my mind, are Patrick Vieira, Roy Keane. Yes, their disciplinary records were abysmal, but I don't recall either of them cheating as such. I mean, they did stupid things like bad tackles. They would, to my mind, they never did anything to get anyone else sent off in the way that Sergio Ramos did. So, for him to be doing that and pretending and all this, sort of ridiculousness, the sort of thing like David Luiz when he got Rafael sent off a few years ago, sort of finding it funny.
Rivaldo with
It's just disgusting.
Rivaldo in the World Cup. Rivaldo in the World Cup.
Yeah, it's just disgusting.
Interestingly, though, I think what happened in Champions League final will affect his legacy at all, and that's purely because I think that at this point he's one of those players that if you're a Madrid fan, you love him. If you're anyone else, you don't. Straight up, and he's one of the, he just is one of those players. He was one of those players before the final. He's one of those players after the final.
Probably the same as Pepe, really.
Yeah, no one, when you think back on Sergio Ramos, is going to know that he's an excellent defender, because he is an excellent defender. But at this point already, people already dislike him, and Madrid fans, all Madrid fans care about is winning. Doesn't matter how you get there. Doesn't matter how you achieve success. If you win, it's fine. And as a bunch of Madrid fans, I'm sure there are exceptions, but loads of Madrid fans would have absolutely loved what he did, because it's just, he did what he needed to do to help the team winning. It was immoral, it was cheating, basically, but he did what he needed to do to help the team win. And Madrid fans would have loved that, because it did help them win. I don't think it would have made a difference if Cuadrado had stayed on, but it just makes it a little bit more certain. So it's one of those acts that I think will have made the real loyal Madrid faithful like him even more, and all the people that already dislike him a little bit more. So overall, does it really change the legacy that I think he'll have? Not really.
I just feel it was slightly unfair to do it to Cuadrado, who had pretty much only come on in that half.
Yeah, I know.
That's slightly cruel.
Stevie G coming on for his last game against Man United. Within minutes, he's off.
Within 30
seconds or something.
38.
Yeah.
I feel like that rounds off that's this topic of the Champions League final, and instead we're going to come on to our weekly feature of the Dugout debate. So for our debate this week, since it's the end of the season now, you start to look ahead for the next season. So of course we've got new players coming in, changing of managers,
new kits.
In this instance, new kits. So with that in mind, we're going to be discussing the worst Premier League kit of all time. Now, this wasn't restricted to anything like home. It was home, away, third, whatever you like. Just anything that was particularly garish, ghastly, or just disgusting. So I'll turn to you first, Alex. What's your choice of kit?
So I feel like I've developed a reputation on this for always picking something Liverpool related, and regrettably I have also gone for something Liverpool related today. But it's okay because I'm insulting them, so I feel like that's all right. And it is our 2013 to 14 horrendous purple, black and white kit. It was awful. People compared it to, I don't know if you guys ever, like when you were younger, had like one of those old Nokias where if you smashed the screen, it kind of went purpley, but it looked like a smashed Nokia 3310 screen. It is truly appalling, and it wasn't just the shirt. The shirt itself, black, white and purple, not really a good combination. Warrior also had a knack for producing slightly odd kit, but we also had odd socks. The socks didn't even match, and it was all from head to toe a truly, truly awful kit.
I don't think we can really deny that it isn't bad. So Josh, we come to you next. What's your choice?
Well, like Alex, I think I've got a bit of a reputation for sticking with my team for most of Dugout debates, usually because United is the best team in the world. However, on this occasion,
Really? Sixth place?
Chris, if I'm talking, you don't.
I'm the host.
Well, yeah, I'm criticising United in this instance with this abysmal abomination of an excuse of a kit, which is the sort of dark grey and light grey combo that they wore, I believe, for only the one time
It was,
in
it was
in
95,
April.
96.
Yeah, I know. I was getting onto that. Thanks.
All right, sorry.
In April 1996. Well, the only way I can describe it is if you know when you had those old televisions and you couldn't quite get the signal right, and had that sort of black and grey. That was kind of like that. That's how I can describe it. And well, I think it says that all that United were 3-0 down at half-time to Southampton, who at that time weren't the best Premier League team in the world. It was a bright day, and apparently the players couldn't see each other. Who knows? It's a pretty good excuse as far as I'm concerned. Fergie at half-time made them swap kits, put on a different kit, and they got a goal back to lose the game 3-1.
Yay.
So I don't think I've ever heard of any other kit in Premier League history that has been changed at half-time. I can think of off the top of my head. So for that reason alone, I think this is a pretty good nomination for worst kit of the PL era.
Well, as for mine, I have gone for a more recent kit, similarly to Alex's. It's the Norwich City kit from, their third kit from 15-16, the season that they were relegated. And if they were being relegated based on kits, they would have been bottom of the table with a points reduction. Because this is just absolutely hideous. I mean, it's got the green and the yellow of typical Norwich colours, but then they've also just thrown in orange for no reason. It's all hooped pattern.
Hey, big orange.
It's a kit that doesn't even look like it belongs in football. It could either work in like horse racing or rugby, perhaps, or perhaps a bad Christmas sweater, but certainly not on a football pitch.
Those famous yellow and green Christmas sweaters we all know and love.
Oh
I've
yes,
got
of
3 of
course.
them in my cupboard. Shall I go get them?
Yeah.
Mind you, perhaps they took some inspiration from those jumpers that they sometimes wear at McDonald's. So if Graham Dorrans wants to serve me a Big Mac,
What's
that's
McDonald's?
absolutely no problem.
Is that part of Harrods?
Oh, for
No.
God's sake.
No.
People are going to think you're serious.
No, they won't, because no one watches this.
Special, actually.
So this is a slightly less serious debate, as I'm sure you're all aware.
This is a fashion debate. This isn't even...
We are now,
And judging
we're now all
both of your
fashionistas.
fashion sense, I think I'm going to win this one.
Hang on. What?
I feel like the United one is probably slightly worse than the Liverpool one because they only changed to it midway through a match. I don't know if they ever wore it again after that.
No,
So
that was the point.
But then at the same time, at least Man United then knew to correct their mistake, unlike Liverpool, who just carried on wearing the shit away from
That
home.
makes Liverpool a bunch of morons. But we knew that anyway. Their kit choice doesn't attract that.
I'd like to support... to be fair, I think... I do, in fairness, I feel like Liverpool, out of these, I don't want to do a Chris here, but I do feel like the Man United kit is probably the worst kit here. It's horrendous. And also, I would like to defend the Liverpool kit, as much as that's not what I'm supposed to be doing, okay?
Yeah, it's not what you...
I don't know if you've been to Liverpool a lot, but a lot of things get nicked in Liverpool, right? If you've got a pretty red shirt,
Premier League title
people are gonna
chances.
people are gonna be like, oh, might nick that nice red kit. If you're wearing some shitty purple, white, black thing with odd socks, no one's gonna nick it. It was just common sense. They were doing it differently.
Whereas in East Anglia, to just sort of annoy people, rather than steal this Norwich kit, they just leave it in your house.
See, I don't think the Norwich kit is that bad at all. I just don't get it. I think maybe it doesn't look like it should be a football kit, maybe a rugby kit, but I still think to look at it, it's a nice looking kit. I think it's quite sleek, it's quite neat. If you look at the Liverpool kit, it looks like a Quality Street box having an epileptic fit, and then the United kit like a television's lost its signal. I think even looking at Norwich, it's quite a nice looking kit.
It looks like an old sock that's been dunked into some dishwater, the United one.
Yeah, and it's left to rot.
I feel like where the Norwich kit, this Norwich kit differs in terms of your two choices, is just looking at the other Norwich kits from that season. You had, of course, their home kit, which was the classic yellow and green. Then you have their away kit, which was green with yellow pinstripes. And then you have this one, which is green, yellow, and orange. So it's the exact same colours that they wear at home. So it not only is a disgusting kit, but it's failing at its job to be a change strip because it's the exact same colours that they would be wearing at home. Area have really fucked up here.
The United kit is at least very different from.
But at least both your kits aren't red.
I would add this isn't the worst third kit; it's just worst kit. So I win.
Yeah, that's true.
Again.
But I
Congratulations,
feel like
you may have won on a debate about what kit was less attractive.
Lavery, a win is a win.
I won last
I mean, you are experienced in having, things less attractive, judging by your dating record.
Less attractive than myself, which isn't that hard when you think about it.
Bang, 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 bang.
What's your dating record again, Lavery?
If you have no ambition, you cannot fail.
That joke works on Chris. It doesn't work on me. I have one.
You've got one.
Yeah, what, a dating record?
No, I meant a girlfriend.
No, God, no.
I was gonna say.
Come on.
He's in a serious relationship with whatever you described yourself as earlier, Josh.
This isn't funny. How can you forget? An A nationality, biogender, two-spirit koala.
Okay, so.
Why is that
I
funny?
feel like that debate didn't go very well. I don't think there's a lot to debate.
No, there's not, because this isn't meant to be a serious one. It was just meant to be a bit of a laugh, because that's what this show is, to be honest. If we can't...
Not for the right reasons most of the time.
This is serious football punditry.
Yeah.
How fucking dare you?
No one watches this, so we just have to entertain ourselves.
Who else brings politics and football together?
Jeremy Corbyn. # Vote Labour.
If you're the sort of
The
person that's
Calciopoli
voting
scandal.
Labour, I'm sure that the Tories can do without you, Lavery. I'll be honest.
Okay.
I'm being bullied now.
I don't really think there's much more we can say about all these horrible kits.
Apart from bye.
Yeah, so at least they. It's not like back in the 50s and the 60s when they would wear the same one over and over again, season after season. So I suppose, well, I don't think much Norwich fans even understand the concept of money. So at least they've not wasted anything on this.
Wow.
What about inbreeding? Too soon?
What do you mean too soon? No, of course it's not too soon. It's been going on for years.
Just look at the royal family.
Ooh.
Except for Harry, because where on earth did that ginger come from?
He is the brother of the future head of state. You take that back.
How do you know?
Well, he certainly got the same mum.
Yeah, at the very least they have the same mum. The same dad just a little bit.
Nice try,
Yeah,
Chris.
Well, let's get the mum to discuss. Oh wait,
Shall we just wrap it up now?
I
Chris,
feel
just
like
wrap it. What's happening?
let's just
mate?
end
Come
this
on.
because this is just seriously derailed. Who do you
What
think?
Chris hosted show derailing?
You see, I hosted three episodes in 4 weeks, and we had no problems like this.
Excuse me.
Yeah, we have
Even
to excuse you.
when you did, we have the worst club owners, and that's seriously derailed by the end.
Yeah, that was
It
your
derailed
fault,
so-
And whose fault was that, Chris?
Yeah, excuse me. I think you'll find that I ended up winning that debate. So
It was still
I'll go
your
up trumps.
fault.
I don't care. It was fun. Just like
Chris, wrap the thing. Jesus.
So this
I
is a
suppose
present. Christmas is tomorrow. Wrap it up quickly.
the best part about this is that it was at a reasonable time. So I think we've just hit the 45-minute mark. So we'll end it here.
Half-time.
We'll end it here. Who has the worst kit ever? Is it one of the ones that we've mentioned? Is it one that we didn't? Let us know in the comments below. We know you won't because you don't watch this. But thank you again for tuning in for the Dugout debate if you've lasted this long. and we'll see you next time.
Bye.
Yay. For more footballing content from In the Dugout, like, follow, share and subscribe. And don't forget to check out our Facebook, Instagram and Twitter pages.